Today we are talking about whole house graywater reclamation systems. Why is a whole house residential graywater reclamation system so beneficial these days? Well, according to the NEEF, here in the state of Colorado, about 559 million gallons of water is withdrawn every day for domestic use, and the average person here in Colorado uses 111 gallons of water per day. You'll find similar statistics for other states here in the United States. How much water do we use? So an average family household, if you look at this pie chart, 24% of our water is consumed for toilet flushing and filling, 20% for showers and baths, 17% for washing clothes, 19% for faucets. So if we think about this, if we reclaim the gray water from our showers and bathtubs, bathroom sinks, washing machines, you're looking at roughly 50%, a little over 50% reduction in your water bill and fresh water consumption. And you can take that harvested gray water and use it for the flush and fill purposes for your toilets and for supplying water to your washing machines as well as your landscaping. Here is a generic layout of a whole house gray water reclamation system. You can see this house has a basement. Nice thing about a gray water reclamation system, you can customize it to fit your house. So if you don't have a basement, maybe you have a crawl space. If you don't have a crawl space, maybe you're on a solid concrete slab. The major components can be mounted just about anywhere within reason. So the way the system works, the gray water from your washing machine and the gray water from your bathroom sinks, not kitchen sinks, because kitchen sink water is considered black water. So you don't touch that. Only the bathroom sink water. And then the gray water from your bathtubs and showers all flows into your gray water processing tank. The gray water processing tank is sized based on the size of your family, how much gray water you produce, how much gray water you consume. That gray water is then very quickly pumped through the filter. The filter is a reusable pleated cartridge filter that is dosed with either diatomaceous earth or cellulose filtering media. Once the gray water has been processed, the supply pump, which essentially is a shallow well jet pump, pumps the treated gray water to a distribution manifold, and that water is then used to supply your toilets for flushing and filling purposes. It can be supplied to your washing machine to wash clothes. It can be supplied to the exterior of your house to irrigate your landscaping. You see here, circled in red, the pressure switch. That is what controls the supply pump. So that supply pump will only turn on when it senses a drop in water pressure on the gray water supply line. So as soon as you flush your toilet, the pressure switch recognizes that drop in pressure, turns the pump on. Once the pressure in the gray water supply line reaches a set point, the pump shuts off. So that pump does not run 24/7. It only runs for short periods of time, intermittently. When I first installed the system on my house, the first full month, I actually saw a reduction in my electric bill. Not because of the gray water system, but in spite of it. Meaning, having these two pumps isn't going to raise your electric bill. I saw virtually no increase in my electric bill from running these electric pumps. They're very energy efficient and quiet. They're not that big. The filter pump is controlled by a programmable timer inside that control panel you see mounted on the wall. You set the programmable timer based on your family's daily routine. For example, have the filter pump turn on in the morning when everyone's taking a shower and brushing their teeth, and it can be off pretty much all day. And then in the evenings, if you know people are going to take a shower again, run the washing machine, wash their hands, brush their teeth, etc., have your filter pump turn on during those time periods. Circled in red here is a freshwater makeup valve, which is a 120 volt solenoid valve. So there is a float switch inside your processing tank. When the float switch floats down because the gray water level has dropped too low for some reason, that freshwater makeup valve opens, allows fresh water to partially fill up your gray water tank so you never run out of water in your tank, just as a safety mechanism. Now, if you produce too much gray water for some reason, the tank's not going to overflow. The excess gray water will simply flow out of this overflow pipe at the top left corner of the tank, go through the P-trap to the sanitary sewer. You'll also note there's a T with an air admittance valve that acts as a plumbing vent. So here's a more detailed view of the pumps. The Pentair Clean and Clear filter and pump assembly can turn over 36,000 gallons of water in 8 hours. So you can imagine with an 80-gallon tank, you're going to turn over that 80 gallons very, very quickly, multiple times. There's also a safety pressure relief valve on the top of that filter housing and a pressure gauge. There's an inline strainer basket just before the pump you see there with the clear lid that will catch things like human hair from a shower or bathtub, or lint fibers, etc., string from the washing machine. The picture on the right shows a shallow well jet pump that provides the treated gray water to your plumbing fixtures or to your landscaping, and you can see it's controlled by that black pressure switch, and also has a pressure gauge, and it sits on top of a bladder tank. Different options for your UV sterilizer. I'd recommend the submersible style UV sterilizer you see on the right. It would be submerged in your gray water processing tank. That allows a maximum amount of dwell time for all of your gray water. The inline UV sterilizers, the water needs to be moving slow enough to have enough dwell time inside that sterilizer to be effective. With that high flow filter pump, it's really not the best option. The best option would be that submersible UV sterilizer. A couple of special fittings to note. Here is that air admittance valve I mentioned earlier that acts as your plumbing vent. You need a minimum, make sure you keep that air admittance valve above the highest level of your processing tank. And then in the middle, you have your air gap fitting. What is that? Well, that's for your freshwater makeup line. So when that solenoid valve opens to top off the water level in your gray water tank, it needs to have an air gap so that there's no chance of the city's fresh water being contaminated by your gray water. And on the right, that is a picture of the freshwater makeup valve. It's a 120 volt solenoid valve. So a couple options for as far as plumbing your bathroom sinks to your gray water system. You can do a setup like you see here with a T underneath your sink and 2 ball valves. You see when the water flows out the left-hand side, again, note the air admittance valve. That goes off to your gray water system. If you change the position of those ball valves, those red handles, that'll allow your sink water to simply drain out to your sanitary city sewer system as usual. Another option, again, if you're on a concrete slab and you don't feel comfortable or can't drill a hole through the side of your wall to discharge your gray water to your gray water system, you can have a small remote pump inside of a small tank underneath your bathroom sink. When it fills up, there's a control float switch that turns the pump on and pumps your gray water to your Graywater system. Or another option, a smaller sink to toilet Graywater system like you see here. The tank fills up with water and the pump turns on and pumps the water through an inline filter to your toilet tank, and you flush and fill your toilet with that treated gray water. There's a chlorine dispenser floating in the tank to sanitize the water. You'll note in the upper right hand corner the city's or the municipality freshwater inlet valve needs to be shut off and capped off. So when you install your your Graywater system, you're going to be installing a completely new second separate supply shutoff valve to your toilets, to your washing machine, to your landscaping, because you never want to cross connect Graywater and city freshwater. So if you're on a concrete slab, here's another option for you. You can have a raised shower pan. When that shower pan fills up, there's a float switch that floats up, tells the pump to turn on. The water then pumps out to your Graywater processing tank. If something fails, say that float switch fails or gets stuck, the water simply flows over the pan and down the drain to the city sanitary sewer. And then again, the grate or the top you would stand on has been removed in this picture for clarity. Ideally, all of your equipment and pumps need to be plugged into a GFCI outlet or an outlet that's controlled by a GFCI circuit breaker. So a couple things you'll need for this type of system: a plumbing permit from your local city authority having jurisdiction in your area. You contact them, you ask them, what do I need? Plumbing permits usually aren't too expensive. In my experience, an inspector will come out one time, look at your system. If everything looks correct, we'll sign off on it. You're good to go. You'll need to have an owner's manual. So for example, a 3-ring binder works fine. Keep all the paperwork that you get for your pumps. You need to have a site plan like this, showing your owner information, a data table with your assessor's parcel number, the legal description of your property, north symbol. You need to show some of the main, where your tanks are, washing machine, etc., where your property lines are, the surrounding street names. You also need a plumbing plan, and it's basically a P&ID, or a piping and instrumentation diagram showing the flow of gray water in your system and the main components. And there's a key down below showing you what all the different symbols represent. So per plumbing code, the gray water needs to be dyed a different color. It can't be clear, even though it will be clear when it comes out of your filter and your sanitizer. So to designate it as gray water. The simplest, inexpensive way to do this is to simply install these, put one of these blue hockey pucks in your toilet tank, and they slowly dissolve over a long period of time. So you meet the plumbing code requirement, and an added benefit, they also further sanitize the water, the gray water, while it's sitting in your toilet tank. Per plumbing code, you also need to have a small sign by the toilet that's fed with gray water saying this toilet uses reclaimed gray water, do not drink. And then any of your exposed gray water plumbing pipes, particularly in the area where your tank and your pumps are, need to be labeled as non-potable gray water, do not drink, and have arrows indicating the flow directionality. And also be sure to have a sign on your gray water processing tank that indicates the capacity of the tank. So if it's an 80-gallon tank, 80 gallons. It also needs to say gray water, non-potable, do not drink. I hope this video helped. Please like, share, subscribe, and leave me a comment for future video topics you would like me to cover.